ain't satisfied with that. I'm gonna play a clip from Jay-Z's speech from his Living Legend Award. Was that what he
It
got?
was the Dr. Dre Global Impact Award.
He had some issues with let's just say Beyonce not getting album of the year, ever winning it, despite winning. Here's a clip from the show.
Obviously, it's subjective because it's music and it's opinion based. But some things, I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won album of the year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work. Think about that. The most Grammys, never won album of the year. That doesn't work.
Does Jay-Z have a point there?
Yes and no. Okay. Yes and no. I can say that because I have a bulletproof vest in case the Beehive comes looking for me.
Some folks are fucking crazy. Just saying.
But I mean, they're not as bad as the Barbs are, but that's another story.
Who the Barbs?
Nicki Minaj's fan base.
Really?
Oh yeah, we'll talk more offline about that.
Oh shit! Okay.
but here's the thing. Yes, it's very, very strange that Beyonce hasn't won. I mean, to some people, it's very strange that Beyonce hasn't won album of the year at least once. She's been nominated 3 times. She got nominated for her self-titled album. She was nominated for Lemonade, and she was nominated for Renaissance last year. She lost self-titled, lost to Beck. Lemonade lost to Adele. And
I'm not surprised. Adele's record.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat 10. You can't beat Diamond.
Right.
And those are hard copies.
I said as someone that, like, I'm not even a Beyonce fan, and I love Lemonade, but Adele's international impact has been phenomenal these last decade or so. So
yeah, there's no way that she was going to beat a Diamond selling record.
Right.
And then of course last year with Renaissance, it's funny that you talked about Bruno. Yeah. Silk Sonic actually decided not to put An Evening with Silk Sonic up for Grammys that year. It certainly would have gotten nominated for Album of the Year, and I thought maybe they were trying to make way for Beyonce to win for Album of the Year by graciously bowing out. But Harry Styles ended up winning for Harry's House, and once again, that he's a white British pop singer who had a big impact with his record. I mean, those are 3 of the biggest hits on the radio all of that year, from Music from a Sushi Restaurant, from As It Was, which was a huge hit, Late Night Talking, which is my jam. I can't even front. I love Late Night Talking. That song like Daydreamer, that wasn't even a single, which makes great use of Quincy Jones and the Brothers Johnson sample.
Right, of course, yeah.
So, there was, in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, I mean, Harry had a big year with those big singles. Beyonce's Renaissance was culturally important, but she made an album that was speaking to a particular community of people, whereas Harry's album spread out to many different people. So there was more awareness of what he brought to the table with that. Of course, not to say that Beyonce doesn't move the needle across Black culture or LGBTQ culture that she did with Renaissance. However, there are rooms that Harry Styles' music can get into that Beyonce's music can't get into. And Break My Soul was the only legitimate single that was released from that record. I mean, Cuff It got a lot of radio play, but she didn't, she purposely made a decision that this album needed to be listened to as a full body of work.
But is that what Beyonce's been doing for a while now, though? She kind of... and this is actually a great segue, because this is going to go into the Taylor Swift conversation now, because I've been saying one of the reasons why I believe Beyonce has not moved the needle in the same way, say, Taylor has now, and I'll say even Rihanna the last 20 years, is because Beyonce in the last, say, decade or more has made a conscious decision to make her music more targeted towards a certain audience. That's it, to the point where, I hate to say it, maybe a white audience doesn't necessarily gravitate to that. Well, and you limit your audience that way, and you obviously gonna limit your reach.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ernest. But there's another point to look at it too. Beyonce made with the exception of this last album, I'll get into that in a second. She has made a conscious effort to have her albums be multimedia, multidiscipline experiences. So, you know, it's not just an album you're listening to. It's an experience that you have to watch. Also, ever since B-Day, every song that she has on her albums gets music videos. And so with
every song on the album?
Ever since B-Day.
No,
ever since B-Day, every song on her albums get music.
That's
videos.
funny because like I know Metallica has done that in the last couple albums too. Every single song on their album has had a video attached to it too. So I know if that's a new trend of a lot of these artists now. Maybe
I think. Well, I mean, I guess it's a trend. It's not unprecedented. I mean, Tony Basil of "Hey Mickey, You're So Fine" fame. She was one of the first people to really try that, to make a music video album where like every song or majority of the songs have music videos. I mean, if you think back to the Thriller days, with Michael Jackson, who revolutionized music videos for everyone.
Right.
He had 7 singles on an album, but only 3 of them had music videos.
Yeah, Thriller, Beat It, and Billie Jean. That's it.
Exactly. So Tony Basil was really one of the first people to really play with that. Then, of course, you have people like Michael Jackson with Moonwalker, Janet Jackson with the Rhythm Nation rollout, Correct. Prince with Sign of the Times.
Yes.
So when they have these sort of visuals that they're putting in to make a big giant statement with their albums, so Beyonce, you know, borrowed from that and enhanced it from that with and really went to another level with the self-titled album. Then with Lemonade, making it a big like a movie. Then of course it's Black Parade and The Lion King, The Gift. And then with Renaissance, she did the opposite.
Yeah.
And decided, I'm not going to do any visuals or in terms of making music videos, which I thought was ultimately an excellent decision, just in terms of letting the music speak for itself. And that's the ultimate point that I'm making.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, she's trying to make a larger statement with her songs by including these visuals. And sometimes those songs don't get to breathe out in the open the way other songs get to breathe, because you're trying to watch it as a big giant cohesive piece. So Rihanna, you know, she's a very single based sort of artist, even though people loved her last record, Anti, which I also enjoyed a lot as a full piece. But when you have people like that have these big singles in a time where singles and individual songs mean a lot, particularly in the streaming era.
Yeah.
The way that Beyonce presents her music ultimately could backfire when it comes to things like this. Because,
and there was a time too also where Beyonce was only had music behind the title Playwall. That's it. Remember?
Yeah, that's the other
hurt
thing.
too. That hurt too also.
Oh, it definitely hurts. I mean, you think of a group like De La Soul. You know, right. De La Soul should be in the GOAT rap group conversations, but they're not. And a big reason why was because they were not on streaming services. And they didn't have any other extracurricular visual sort of presentations. You know, Wu-Tang is in that conversation because of their TV show, because of their documentary, because of all the other things that they do, the other enterprises. Yeah. NWA is in that conversation because they have the biopic, because Dr. Dre is constantly in this, because Ice-T is always making movies. You know, A Tribe Called Quest is in that conversation because they have their big documentary, because Q-Tip is a big producer, because Ali Shaheed Muhammad is a big producer.
Right.
So De La Soul, all they do is put albums out, they make some videos, and they go away and do it again a few years later. And if you're not in the public consciousness like that, and your music's not on streaming, you're not going to get that type of attention. And so that's why it's so important. You know, streaming has become that important thing, because that's the main way that people listen to music now.
Right. So we talk about needle moving. I'm gonna play a clip from the Nightcat podcast from Shannon Sharp and Chad Cinco, because they got into discussion about Taylor Swift and her involvement with the NFL, and how like Shannon was basically saying that she moves the needle in the ways that no one else can, and he asked Chad who else can move the needle like her. And I want you to hear this little back and forth about a minute here.
Now tell me the NFL player. Okay, no, NFL. Tell me the other person that's going to do that. Wait, how many?
$331 million in value.
Hold on. Let me think. Who else could move the needle like that? Wait, give me a minute. I'm thinking that. Let me think of somebody else could move a needle.
That's great, by the way.
No one.
Beyonce. If hypothetically speaking, if she went with Jay-Z and not Travis Kelce, let's say Beyonce.
She
Not
like this. Not like this. These eyes, Ocho. These 8 to 15-year-old eyeballs. Ocho, she
the same.
No,
He had the same.
Ocho,
That same
Ocho,
feeling.
Ocho.
Yes.
I love Beyonce. Beyonce ain't moving the needle like this chick, Ocho. No,
What? You
tripping, Ocho. This girl,
ask the
she's
chat.
the closest
Ask
thing.
the chat.
She's the closest thing to moving the needle like Michael Jackson that we've seen. This is it.
Whoa. Oh, whoa. Reel it back in a little bit, baby. Beyonce moves the needle just like Taylor, if not more.
No, she doesn't.
Ask the chat, please.
You ask the chat. Ask the chat,
please.
We put it to the chat.
Do a poll. Do a poll.
What do you think, man?
Okay. Once again, we're talking about certain circles, right?
Yeah.
So if you ask us, certain people, then they'll say, no, there's no way Taylor Swift and Beyonce are on equal footing, or Beyonce has more. But like I said, what Beyonce does is she's more concerned with culture than she is with, numbers in that sort of way. Beyonce, she'll put a record out every 4 or 5 years and then she'll disappear. Taylor Swift is, she announced while winning a Grammy for an album she put out last year that she has a new album coming out in a month and a half. So she's constantly putting out new music. So she's constantly in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Beyonce, because she chooses to put out records every few years, she's constantly in conversation when it comes to other things. But when it comes to music and just visibility, yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that, because Taylor goes out of her way, or is just naturally a person that is in the public eye because she's constantly touring, or she's constantly doing videos, or she's constantly at award shows, and she's constantly putting out product, and that requires you to make yourself available. Because Beyonce makes a conscious effort to be mysterious in terms of, okay, I'm not only going to put out certain records, during a certain amount of time, I'm not going to make a lot of public appearances either. It's going to be very rare that you're going to.
It's very, it's funny.
It's an award show or something of that nature.
As you're saying it too, I'm thinking about this too also, because I don't follow Beyonce in the same way, but I noticed she isn't in the limelight in the same way that she was in the mid 2000s.
No.
The last she put a record, just a tour when she has a tour, but she's not in the public eye in the same way that, say, Taylor is, or even Rihanna for that matter.
No.
I guess that's a conscious decision she's made to do. It's very similar to Michael Jackson in the 80s. Because people forget how big Michael was in the 80s, but he was also the most inaccessible celebrity then too also. He wasn't doing a Taylor thing every day. That's what made him so special too, is the fact that he was so big, but yes, so unaccessible.
Yeah, she definitely took a page out of that.
But the thing is, though, I think in the 80s you can do that. Today,
yeah,
fans want accessibility, and I think that's the thing also to it. Why I think this. I keep telling Beyonce fans this, and they get offended by this. We're not saying that she's better. Taylor's better than Beyonce. I think Beyonce is a far better entertainer, far better vocalist than Taylor Swift individually. We're talking about needle moving. We're talking about data. Data matters. Taylor Swift data wise pushes needle in ways that Beyonce doesn't even come close at this point now. And we're not, again, this is not a likability situation. This is more about who's doing what, who's pushing product, and that's Taylor right now. Taylor is the biggest thing going in music right now, period. And you just gotta accept that.
But it's purely because of quantity.
Yeah.
I think that if Beyonce moved like Taylor, then that'd be a different story.
I do think right, go ahead.
But because Beyonce chooses only putting out records every few years and chooses not to be in the public as much, that's just a metric situation. Like you said, it's data. But if Beyonce decided that she wanted to make a record every single year, then then it would be a completely different story.
But I also think also, and you may agree with me on this one too. I think Taylor Swift is just more relatable as a human being than Beyonce is in terms of just what she's talking about. Like the average Joe, the average Jane can relate to what she's saying. Beyonce doesn't feel attainable. Beyonce feels like a queen. You can't get to her. She's just up there. That's why I always say, who do you think you smoke weed with? Rihanna or Beyonce? Probably Rihanna. Rihanna seems more attainable than Beyonce. Hey, let's be real here, okay?
Yeah.
Taylor's kind of the same way like Rihanna in a sense that she's a big star, but she seems relatable. Like I can still feel like I can get close to her because like she doesn't come. I'm not even saying that Beyonce's a snob. I'm not even going that far. I'm just saying that I feel like it's much easier to approach Taylor Swift somewhere at a random store or restaurant than say Beyonce. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. I think fans see that and get that, and that's why I think this is why the numbers are where they are. And it's the same way with the Rihanna Beyonce argument too. Also, the reason Rihanna has sold more records than Beyonce is the same reason. Rihanna makes herself more accessible. She's more relatable as a human being, in my opinion, anyway. And that's what it translates to record sales. You can't do the thing that Michael was doing in the 80s in these days now. You can't be the reclusive star anymore and think people are going to care. You got to be you have to be somewhat relatable and somewhat accessible to your fans.
Well, I think Beyonce is the exception to that rule because people definitely do care about her, even though she isn't putting out records. But I actually think that in the long run, it might backfire for people. In the short interim, it helps.
Who though? For Taylor?
It helps. Well, for Taylor, I think that because I think it has a lot to do with a few things. Number one, race cannot be ignored. I mean, we just can't ignore the fact that Taylor is a white woman and Beyonce is a black woman.
Without question.
That has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely, without question.
That has a lot to do with it. Second of all, like I said, Taylor is a person who, is sort of a machine. She puts out records, and she puts out records like a assembly line.
Yeah.
Not that that's bad or anything like that. Motown Records was like that for many years. Brill Building was like that. So that's not a dig. But that's how she operates. She's not like a person like Beyonce. It's like, okay, I'm not just going to be a person that's just going to make music just because music needs to be made. I'm going to make music for a reason because there's a grand statement that has to be done.
Correct.
That's not something you can do every single year. That's why Michael Jackson put out records every 3 or 4 years. That's why Bruno Mars waits 3 or 4 years before he puts out records. And now people like Adele, even now, I mean, it's been a few years since 30 has come out. Right now she's doing
right. And let me be clear too. Also, I prefer the Beyonce approach with this. I'm the guy that prefers the couple years off. Let me breathe a little bit.
It gives people a chance to miss you.
Oversaturation, huh?
It gives people a chance to miss you.
Thank you. Absence makes hardcore founder. And it's not. Again, you said it too. It's not taking on Taylor. This is what she wants to do. This is what she does. And Taylor is an authentic musician. She does write on music and all that kind of stuff. But oversaturation is a thing also too. But that's what kids want these days, I guess. It's working for right now.
That's the product of living in the era of social media.
That too also.
I often think about what life would be like in the 80s and the 70s if social media existed. I mean, half the artists that you and I love probably wouldn't even exist because they would have gotten canceled.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because social media turned everybody into a damn detective. You know what I'm saying?
That's very true. But but like what we're saying here about Taylor moving the needle, again, we're not saying she's better than Beyonce. It's just the data is the data. And fans today want their celebrities, want their artists to be accessible as possible. If it means putting a record every fucking year, then so be it. And Beyonce, to her credit, has stuck to her guns, and I'm going to do the way I do it. And if it means that I don't sell as much records as her, then so be it. I personally prefer that way too, because I prefer my artists to, look at it. They look at an album as an art. It's not just like, okay, I'm putting an album out in April and that's it. Whatever. That's another album. No, each album that Beyonce puts out, each album that Michael puts out was always a project, a era.
Yeah. An era, exactly.
Right. So,
which is interesting because that was Taylor's tour, is eras, and talking about her albums. But that's a real thing, because one thing that Beyonce and other people are able to do that Taylor hasn't done as well or hasn't needed to do is the art of reinvention. So Taylor had a one big reinvention when she transitioned from country music to pop music.
Right.
That was her big reinvention. But I'm talking about when you go from one album to the next album to the next. I mean, Taylor Swift fans can probably tell you much more nuanced reasons why from one album to the next she's changed better than I possibly could. But that's the point, is that, you know, a fan would be able to express that to you more than average person like me that only knows Taylor Swift's music from a broad sense. Everybody knew when Michael Jackson's new album came out, things were changing because he had a new wardrobe, he had a new look, he had a new hairstyle. The music sounded different. The same thing with Prince. Every time Prince came out with a new record, it was something a new phase, it was a new outfit, a new hair length. Kanye West was like that too. Missy Elliott, it was a queen of reinvention. You know, of course, you go to bands, people like David Bowie, people like Madonna, you know, that's a big part of longevity. So, you know, that's the thing with Beyonce.
Even Metallica too also started doing that. Once they got bigger, every album became like a project, an era too. Also, they went 5 years out make records.
Yeah, I mean,
go 8 years now actually. So
exactly. I mean, if you look at Metallica and you look at like when they went from Injustice for All to the Black Album, that was a big change,
massive shift, because
you know they were making their songs shorter, they were making their songs sound more cleanly produced. And then, you know, and then when it go to Load, you know, they start and Reload, they're starting to venture into different musical styles.
Yep.
You know, they're putting in some Southern rock influences in there, some country influences in there. So, you know, you do see that from a stylistic standpoint, and then of course the big chop when they cut their hair off.
Yep.
So, you know, you have these markers in their outer aesthetic that helps you to see, okay, this is a new era. So I don't see that as much in Taylor Swift just because I'm not that versed in Taylor Swift. And I'm not as versed in Beyonce either, but I'm versed enough to know that when a new album comes out,
it's a big deal.
You know, it means, okay, now we're shifting. Now we're off that now. Now we're on to something else.
I feel like right now, because of the NFL angle now too, also we're kind of at a tipping point with Taylor Swift now. I feel like now we're like, okay, everybody likes her, knows who she is. We might start to see some real backlash going forward. And you start to see a little bit now too, where people are getting a little picky and petty. Like, for example, people are mad at her because she wasn't gracious enough to Celine Dion at the Grammys. I didn't see this. I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Petty as shit, but you start seeing those little things. It's Americana. We build them up, let's tear them down.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right.
Fame is the most effective and elusive serial killer in the history of this country.
Right. And I feel like we're at a point now with Taylor now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's bound to happen to everybody. I have a saying: unless you die before you're 50 or you're Miles Davis, everybody falls off.
That's why I always said the Beatles didn't have that chance to fall off.
Because they quit while they were ahead.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The Beatles stopped when they were just reaching their peak and they walked away. The Police stopped when they reached their peak and then they just walked away and left people wanting more. I think that's why Daft Punk decided to break up, because how in the world
Nirvana too.
Yeah, I mean, well, Nirvana, you know, they stopped because
of
a shotgun blast. But I mean, no disrespect, you know,
no, it's okay, no.
But
reality.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows? I mean, but everybody, if you have any longevity, if you you fall off unless you're Miles Davis. He's the only person that never fell off.
So true.
He's the only one.
So I'm gonna make a statement here, and tell me if you agree with me on this one. Mm-hmm. In the history of music, I've said in history of music we've had three phenomenons. You know, culture shifts, pop culture wise in this country. Mm-hmm. We've had Elvis. We've had the Beatles. We had Michael.
Yeah.
Am I wrong to think that Taylor Swift might be the fourth? Because I haven't seen one artist or act be this important now. And let's be real here. This is not a new thing. She's been around for a little bit now. She's been around for at least 10 plus years now.
And the irony about that is that because of streaming, and because of social media, it's harder to pinpoint that because everything now is so siloed. Like mainstream music is a silo niche genre in and of itself to a certain degree, because you have people that can have success without needing to be number one on the charts or needing to be, and plus the Billboard charts got 1 million charts. You don't just have the R&B charts and the Hot 100 charts and the rock
But
charts.
she's the one artist I've seen the last, and I'm not going based on what we're seeing now in the last year and last 2 years. I'm taking a 10-year sample at least of this woman who's been on the tips of everybody's tongue for the last 10 years now, and it's continuing to build and build and build. It's almost like a phenomenon. Now, obviously, streaming is a little bit different. It's a little bit different situation, but you can't go anywhere without knowing who this woman is. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, and that's very true. But like I said, because of the era we're in, it's a little different. I think that if you want to talk about, if you really want to talk about it, she could be just in terms of mainstream success. But I don't think that she affected culture. The way that the Beatles affected culture, the way that Michael affected culture, the way that Elvis affected culture.
Right.
Things in different mediums changed because of those 3 acts. You know what I'm saying? The
reason I brought up is because you start to hear now we're in an election year.
Yeah.
You're now hearing people in both camps. Well, mostly in the Republican camp now, that could she sway an election if she gets people to come out and vote for Biden, that could sway the election. That's once you're in those parts now, where politics now is so polarizing, and yet that one name can be the name that hypothetically change this course of an election. That you're now going some uncharted territory now.
That's hard. But that's a tale as old as time. Shout out to Beauty and the Beast. Everybody, tries to use celebrity and particularly musicians to get voters and to sway people to certain votes and certain sides of the pendulum in terms of conservative and liberal.
Right.
You saw the Last Dance documentary, of course, I'm sure.
Of course.
And, there was that episode where, Michael was trying to, Michael declined endorsing this black candidate in North Carolina and felt like that was the difference between getting this white racist candidate out of office. And because he didn't endorse them publicly, that black candidate didn't win.
Right.
I don't know necessarily if that's true or not, but there is enough merit to it that people believe that. Bob Marley almost lost his life because, people were trying to figure out what side of the fence he was on politically in Jamaica when these 2 warring political factions were going up against each other. So I think that if Taylor's smart, she will probably stay neutral or she'll endorse Biden because she sees from her arch nemesis, Mr. West, that endorsing Trump is going to do nothing but get you in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that holds you back from saying that Taylor is that 4th phenomena, I don't know how her international impact is. We know Michael is a god outside America.
Yeah.
Okay. Even today, 15 years after his death.
Oh yeah,
the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie.
He's the Black Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah,
because what did he say when he fought Darth Vader in Star Wars? If you strike me down, I become more powerful than ever. Right. And that's exactly what happened.
In death,
he's more popular than ever.
Yeah, Elvis still. It's been a long time since
people still even try to act like he didn't die. Like people still
right. And the Beatles are still the Beatles. The Beatles are still
the Beatles had a top 10 record.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. The Beatles, they have the biggest selling album of the 2000s, and they had a top 10 record on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah.
within the past 3 or 4 months, and 2 of their
Right.
members have been dead for over 2
40
decades.
years. Yeah. Yeah. So my thing is like the only thing holding back with Taylor Swift is that I don't know if this phenomenon is solely an American phenomenon. Because those 3 guys you mentioned are internationally legendary.
So here's what I will say then. Another person that moves the needle internationally that we know of that probably does numbers like Taylor does, as much as it pains me to say it, is Drake. Drake has the most placements on the Billboard Hot 100 Top 10 than any artist in history, albeit a lot of them are because he was a guest artist.
Correct.
But it's still true. He does big numbers when his records come out. He's another person that puts an album out, particularly in the last 3 years, at a constant quantitative state. So that he's moving the needle internationally because of the fact that he has borrowed a lot of these trends from overseas that become popular in America, and then artists that he works with start working with him, and then they start to see an uptick of things that they're doing. So
get the rub.
Yeah, exactly. So we can say officially that Drake does move the needle internationally in a way that Taylor Swift might not move the needle internationally, at least from a novice's standpoint.
I'll say this much though to your point with Drake, and I've been saying this for about a couple of years now. Without question, Drake is the biggest hip hop star we had in the last 15 years. Without question,
I would say rap star.
Rap star. Oh, rap star. Okay.
Drake is a pop artist who happens to rap.
Okay. Fine.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to call a spade a spade.
I'm just saying in that genre, he's the biggest name we've had in the last decade plus.
It unquestionably.
Is he moving needle like a Taylor or
But I don't think he does because of the fact that he's a rapper also.
Right.
And that's always going to hold you back to a certain degree. Because
that country pop sector is so huge. And that's what Taylor got that.
But it's even more granular than that. Right. Melody is king.
Of course.
Quincy told that to Michael. Michael told that to Teddy. Teddy told that to... It's just... Melody is king.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to hum it. If you can hum it, then you already did your job. And that's one of the things that Drake understands because of the fact that he sings and he raps is because people still have to be able to hum what you do. How many people, I don't know very many people outside of hardcore hip hop fans that would pick a rap album to be their quote unquote desert island album. Only a person that only listens to hip hop would say that. But a person that listens to lots of different music, I'm willing to bet 8 times out of 10 they would not pick a rap album to be their desert island album.
No, I might consider Busta Rhymes album, but
you have to be able to hum it. That's why people like Ja Rule and people like Nelly and people like Drake win, because they tapped into something in terms of incorporating melody into their raps and into their music in a way that other rappers weren't doing. That's why they ultimately ascended to a place of mainstream acceptance in ways that other rap artists didn't. It didn't have as much to do with their image as it did with the fact that people were able to sing along. People were able to hum it. If you want to go and take a ride with me, you can sing that.
Yeah.
What would I
20
do
years later?
You? I only think about you. Like you can sing that. Just hold on, we're going home. You can sing those things.
Yeah. And Drake is a genius. He is not my cup of tea, but I can appreciate what he does. Yeah. And what he's been able to sustain, especially in a genre where it's about being tough and this and that and this sort of image. Drake's like, nah, I'm good. I'll do what I'm doing, and I'll bring the ladies, I'll bring even some of the white audience and all that. I'm good, man. It's working.
Drake has been the best artist when it comes to being extremely successful by being extremely passive aggressive.
Yes.
I've never seen somebody as passive aggressive as Drake be this successful. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's certainly impressive.
It's worked for him. It's his career. So
exactly, and that's the thing. He does what works. You know,
Yeah.
it's starting. That's another person where like it's starting to like rear its head a little bit. I wrote an article about the fact that he was starting to send unprovoked shots and beef at women, which is really, really strange.
yeah, wow.
But
And that's core to your audience.
well, yeah, but like I said, but yeah, it's a corny audience. If you're a corny person but you have corny fans, they're gonna support you.
Speaking of Melody,